Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Duo Planet, the YouTube channel where we talk all things media. I'm one of your hosts, Azteral. As always, I'm joined by fellow co-host Slasher, aka Jordan.
Hey everybody.
And we're back for another week, another intense week of The Last of Us Season 2. Obviously, kind of a big deal this week because this is aftermath of everything that went down last week with our great friends in the WLF, aka the Salt Lake crew, as I will refer to them throughout the rest of the reviews that we do for the season. This episode is called The Path, which very apt name considering that this is now the path that Ellie will follow for literally the rest of her life. Yeah, opens up pretty much right after episode 2 with Tommy sort of caring for his brother's body. It has a really heartfelt thing where he tells Joel to say hi to Sarah for him and all that. Very nice stuff. This episode is vastly different from the games, not just a little bit. This is a very big departure from the games because it sort of changes Ellie's motivation for the revenge that she seeks. Because while she does want to go and kill Abby, she isn't the first one to go or to leave Jackson. In the game, the first one to leave is actually Tommy, and her main reason for going is to make sure Tommy doesn't die, because Maria's like, I will blame you for the rest of your life. But Tommy does not go to Seattle, or at least we don't hear that he's gone to Seattle or see that he's gone to Seattle. So I assume he'll show up later with Jesse, because Jesse will likely reappear towards the end of season 2. You got to think, 4 episodes left. I doubt we're going to see some of the big stuff from the games in this season. That'll probably be saved for season 3, but I think we'll get pretty close. Obviously, Ellie is recovering in hospital because she was badly hurt by the Salt Lake crew, specifically by Manny, who takes the place of Jordan in this game, in the series, and beats her a little bit. We get a nice scene with Ellie in Joel's house where she goes around looking at memorabilia, a bunch of carved wood things, Joel's watch, which is damaged at the time where Sarah died, that he always wore around his wrist as sort of a reminder. We had... God, what else did we have? We had his revolver, which Ellie took and is going to use as her main execution weapon, we think, for the Salt Lake crew. And his jacket, which she cries over and gives a little sniff. And then Dina interrupts and tells her that she does know things. Ellie's angry because she thinks Dina cost them time, but Dina's like, no, I figure if you know where they're going to go, just let them get there before you set off. And you know what? Fair enough, Dina. You do you, boo. What else did we have? We had a council meeting where Seth redeemed himself a little bit by being like, fuck mercy. Someone hurts you, you hurt them back double. Specifically about Joel. We had a guy that was angry about crops and was completely off topic for the discussion of the meeting. And then we had Ellie, who wrote her thoughts down because she thinks before she speaks. She speaks before she thinks. And a bunch of other stuff. Then we get some sort of miscellaneous scenes where Dina helps Ellie get prepared to go to Seattle, joins her on the trip. We get a scene at Joel's grave where Ellie sort of makes a silent vow to get vengeance for him, or justice as she sees it. and then we get a nice long travel sequence that leads us to the corpse of Seraphites that we saw earlier in the episode. The Seraphites, or the Scars, are a sect. Obviously, if you haven't played the game, you don't know what they're called yet. You just know that they follow a prophet, blah blah blah. They're called the Scars, or the Seraphites. They communicate through whistling, which, for any game player, immediately gives you PTSD to when they spot you. But we find them dead, killed by multiple calibers, every single one of them, even the children. And then we get Ellie and Dina arriving in Seattle, being happy that no one's shooting at them yet. And then we cut to Manny, who's I think he's in the Space Needle. I think the scene with Manny, he's in the top of the Space Needle, which is cool, but never happens in the game. Gets a radio call from people saying that they're moving up to the FOB, or the Forward Operating Base, and that they need certain sectors checked. So he checks those sectors, gives them the all clear, and that's when we get introduced to the large group of the WLF, or the Washington Liberation Front, which in some ways is worse than Fedra. And that's where the episode ends, ready for next week, where we'll probably kick off with some awesome action, scouting, finding of the Salt Lake crew and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much a recap of this episode. I already know this episode isn't going to be as well received as last week's episode, because one, it's not as impactful. Two, it also changes probably the most from the game so far. Like, a lot of the stuff that happens in here doesn't happen in the game. And obviously people will be very butthurt about that, though I think it's more realistic for it to happen this way.
At the end of the day, a game's a game. You need to let gameplay happen in a game, but in a TV show, you're able to just sit down, watch, and see things through.
The biggest gripe that I have is probably they've sort of ruined the mystique that was built up around the Scars in the game. Because early on, you hear the WLF refer to Ellie and Dina as Scars, and you're like, why are they calling them that? They're not Scars. They're not the people that these WLF people have been fighting for so long. And you don't find out anything about them until you're abruptly introduced to them in a combat segment where you get shot with an arrow. Granted, it's fine. It's like a subtle change to the mystique of them. It's now less intense because you now know that there's another faction out there. But yeah,
there's always multiple factions.
I think for what this episode was, it was pretty good. It was serviceable to get the point across of Joel is gone. Don't get used to seeing Pedro Pascal every episode. And he isn't in this episode at all, apart from like his hand, and that could literally just be a stunt double.
He probably stayed on set for a lot of it.
But yeah, that is sort of like where we're at. We are about to get into the hunt. Ellie is about to start her vendetta, her hunt against the Salt Lake crew. Probably going to be targeting, I'm going to say Manny first, which is a big departure from the game, because first it's Jordan, then it's Leah, then it's Nora, then it's Mel and Owen, but she's actually going after Abby, and then she retreats, and blah, 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 blah. But big departure. Should be interesting to see how it goes down. I hope we get to see some action next week, because this was a very action-light episode.
This was mostly us seeing the aftermath.
Yeah, the no action. There was, apart from the opening scene where you see all the charred infected, there is not a single infected in the
Which is nice to have, because it's nice to have like an action-packed episode, and then you get an episode where it's all calm at first.
Yeah, and it's sort of building the tension of where's the next ambush gonna come from, because the game makes well use of ambush style encounters. But yeah, I think this episode probably like a 7.5 out of 10. I'd probably give it 7.5 stars.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna agree with that one. I like how it wasn't action packed completely, because last episode was so heart wrenching and action packed that it's nice to have a break. But yeah, I agree with your assessment on that.
Yeah, I think it'll be interested to see where things go, because an interesting thing is, I would say that pacing wise, it's better paced than the game, because in the game, obviously, you can't have like an hour-long segment where there's just like talking and stuff. You have to have some like gameplay in there. And I think that in the game, you're just straight to Seattle after like a 5-minute morning sequence. You are just in Seattle with Dina, going about getting your revenge. There's no time to grieve. There's no time to see other characters' reactions. You are just out of the place. You are gone. So I think it is overall paced better. I do think I still prefer. I think I do still prefer the method by which Ellie goes to Seattle in the game, be it after Tommy, because one of the small side stories of The Last of Us 2 is showing you just how similar to Joel Tommy is. And you get to hear all about how like brutal like people are being killed. You get to see like the same brutal torture method that Joel used in the first game used on them, because it's a torture method that they like came up with together. And you get to hear like real fear when they talk about this. I think they call him something like the Ghost of Seattle, because he appears, kills, and then he just vanishes, because he's killing them from range with a rifle. It's really cool. I hope that Tommy does appear in the thing. I would like to see more of Gabriel Luna's acting, because I think he's doing really well with the Tommy character. But yeah, overall, pretty good episode. Anything else?
No, I think you've hit it on the head there.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for next week. I'm excited to see where we end up. But I've been one of your hosts, Azteral.
I'll be your host, Slasher.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all that garbage that YouTube asks you to do. Make sure to keep listening for danger. There we go. I'll use that as an outro thing, the listen mechanic from the game. And we will see you next week for probably a pretty action-packed episode. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
We forget 1,000 things every day, pal. Make sure this is one of them.
It's over, Anakin!